Greetings, comrades, and welcome to the Eastern Border. Hello to people who are listening to this. You're missing out on massive amounts of visual problems. We're also streaming this with Alex. A lot of things happened recently, and we decided that I'm trying out new formats. But today, basically, I'm going to talk about how horrible it is to be correct.
Yeah.
In short, basically, yeah. I do have to ask you, I looked up a lot about political violence, but you got to tell me who this guy even was. First time I've heard of him.
We're talking about, of course, Charlie Kirk, yeah.
Just in case of whatever, please introduce yourself, otherwise it might be weird. I apologize, I already presumed that everyone listening to my show would instantly recognize your voice. I have stopped counting how many times you've been on.
You've been on my show, I think, more than anybody else.
Also, every time we hang out here, we have like a weird overlap thing. Please just introduce yourself to those few, I think maybe two people, and one of them probably lives in, I don't know, Albania. Who doesn't know you?
Oh, I don't think they want to hear from me then, probably. I'm just kidding. I have nothing to say about Albania. I actually would like more Balkan listeners because I tend to talk about the Balkans quite a bit. And I'm actually in the process of finishing up an episode that I'm finally going back to Yugoslavia history, and that's going to be really fun. And I say that in air quotes. Yes, no, I'm Alexander von Sternberg is the name I like to fully go by online because it always prompts people to go, that's your name? But I host History Impossible. I write for the History Impossible newsletter. I get published in a number of outlets here in the U.S., Quillette, Queer Majority, Marion West, number of other places. The thing I'm honestly right now most proud of is that I can actually say that I'm very close to becoming a quote-unquote real historian. I'm on my last year of getting that master's, so we'll see how that goes.
You will then be allowed to join the epic, the club of very great people with masters in history.
Exactly, yeah, and fingers crossed I'll get a PhD, but we'll see. That's down the line. We'll see.
I am now being heavily pushed by university in Riga because modern Russia as a religion, all this aspect, no one's done it, and I will probably be doing a PhD in pol science about this whole Russia religion aspect because, again, because the thing is, the more you actually watch what they themselves say, the more it makes sense. If you like, it's hard to accept if you only believe that everyone's gonna do everything calculated. But yeah, Alex is great. He's been here a lot. Whenever we're here together on this configuration, we're definitely gonna mention Dugin at some point.
Well, there's that. Yeah, that gets annoying.
I consider this to be our yearly Dugin discussion meeting as well. Because if you want political violence, oh boy, son, I have all the political violence for you.
I was gonna say we got to check in with Dugan, see how he's doing.
Oh
yeah.
But please tell me about the person who got shot and what happened to him. I am a bit of a loss. And then I'm actually gonna have to give you Robert, who runs the merch store and it helps me do my YouTube channel. He, by the way, just started studying history.
Good for him.
In college. But his end goal is to become a diplomat. He wants to be a career diplomat.
Nice.
And then he sent me quite a long text, which he had written to his girlfriend's Discord channel, because he and his girlfriend, they have their own thing because she's in Britain. I don't know what they're doing. He's 21 or something, but he's a really cool dude. And before leaving to do university, I think he just sent me a thing which I'm gonna read, because again, I have been too busy following Russia and knowing all sorts of weirdos in Russia. I apologize, but you're going to have to explain what happened, but I presume I'm very surprised because I didn't expect such things to be going on in America lately.
I mean, well, but at the same time, you shouldn't be surprised because, as you said, it sucks to be right all the time in so many words. I mean, I actually just went back and when we had our first conversation about the possibility that we're entering a new age of assassination on a global scale, I think is how we more looked at it, but I was obviously taking a more America-centric view. Funny enough, tomorrow, that'll have been 3 years ago. It came out on September 13th, 2022. We had an episode together that called The Assassinations and Historical Discontents. So, we've been talking about this for 3 years.
I remember back then, only about 10 people had been thrown out of windows in Russia.
Yeah, what's it at now?
20... It's over 40, but like 22 are related to the army and about like 16 more related to big business.
So many depressed big business people and army people, I guess. I don't know.
I guess you're like sitting there like, shucks, I now have all the money.
Yeah. No, I mean, but we were having a rash of assassination attempts and things like that already back then, but it's just gotten worse as time has gone on in those last 3 years. I mean, but and we can jump back to that. I mean, I have a number of
Another assassination is your healthcare CEO person.
right. That was the last big one, and I think it's fair to say that there's a very bright red line between that one and this one, and also the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. Well, there was technically two last year, but the one that where he got his ear grazed, which I believe we did talk about.
Please tell me about the person. And I found out about this after I hadn't slept for 2 days straight, and Russia had sent drones into Poland, and cruise missiles were flying over Ukraine to western side, and I was sitting there, stared at the monitor, and did things there. So
No, 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 no. I mean, you kind of have more than a few things to be thinking about besides like American pundits being assassinated. I'm not saying that it's not a big deal, but I'm just saying that like I wouldn't expect anybody outside of America to even register this necessarily. And then when they do, and there's an Australian creator I follow who made a really good response to this, where he just put it very bluntly, like, what the hell is going on with you guys? Like, we know that you guys are kind of out there. But he's Australian, so he's like, they have their own thing. But he was saying, like, it really hit home for me that from the outside looking in, you and I talked a little bit. We talked to our mutual friend Daniele Bolelli about it, who is American, but he's Italy. There's a perspective, an outsider's perspective looking in, that when you see something like this happen, your impulse as an outsider is, what the hell are you guys doing? I mean, I was saying this to somebody, and this is really honestly like the core like emotional reaction I have been experiencing, just really how unhinged we look as a nation. Which I know it's complicated. It's not necessarily the entire nation, but that's not how people perceive things. Like, from the outside looking in, we look like we have gone completely insane.
I have a very strange theory about this one, about you going insane, because you are going insane, but in a very weird, strange way currently.
Yeah. Oh, I can tell you a really good way, that because that was something that this Australian guy, this commentator, was saying that just really hit home for me, was that, I mean, he made a really good point where he said, look, not justifying these things, but when Hamas invaded Israel and committed completely inhuman, brutalizing acts against the people of, the places where they invaded, rape and murder and so forth, there was a casus belli there. There was a reason. They had reasons for doing what they did. And then when Israel responded, turned their retaliation into what it's become now, there was and still is a casus belli. There's this nation building project going on. I mean, it's and that's very euphemistic. I'm just saying, the point is, there were reasons, there were narratives there that actually mattered. But it seems like in America, when political violence takes over, this guy said, it's because some asshole annoyed you on Twitter. It's like, oh, that guy, I hate him because he says things I don't like. I'm going to kill him. That guy runs a company that represents a thing I'm not supposed to like, as in American healthcare. I'm going to kill him. Put aside the substantial criticisms one can have of the man who was killed, in this case, Charlie Kirk, or of Brian Thompson. I don't know why anyone gave a shit about who he was, but about the American healthcare system. Put aside all that. We're talking about killing people. And that's kind of a serious thing, that, I mean, to put it mildly. And I can jump back to talking about who Charlie Kirk actually was. I mean, because it probably is necessary, but I want to let you finish what you were saying.
I think that this whole mess ties in together with our whole attitude, or whole world is basically borked since.
No, I'm laughing because I agree.
I talked about Robert and his 20-year-olds. And then we understood one interesting thing, the fact that, we're all just people who are just sitting here, and we're talking about the rise of far-right parties in Europe, and the fact that white people don't like Americans so much. And then I spoke with some people on Discord from Netherlands, person whose dad is also a journalist. And then we understood that, American culture is really fucking up everyone else.
Yeah.
Because here's the problem is, I told these guys that back when you had massive protests, Black Lives Matter, all this police brutality, Latvia had protests supporting Black Lives Matter movement, which has no presence in Latvia. And Netherlands had protests against Dutch police brutality, which doesn't exist.
Or the UK, like against police shootings. British cops don't carry guns. I mean, typically.
And the situation here is the fact that when people think that we have your problems, we spoke about this previously. However, when you guys arrive on the internet, you presume that what you have there is the normal thing. So what you guys call like your ideas about how things should be, you might call it that there's some nice progressivist ideas. Everyone else sees them just as American ideas.
Right.
And the fact is that the other countries tend to be nation states for a lot. You fundamentally are not one.
Mm-hmm.
What Trump is doing is insane because he's now trying to build a nation state that is a vague replica of this stuff, and he's trying to LARP himself. But that's a very complex process. But the idea is that due to your domination, you're kind of going through the insanity that we went through like in the early 90s when we tried to absorb a bunch of American culture. I told you about the MacGyver tape, right? How we call it duct tape.
Right. Yeah.
Look, that's when we got all that culture, like massive Americanization, which a lot of people like don't like. Trump and Elon Musk, they're now trying to stuff not American style fascism over there in you. No. We're talking proper nation state things. They're not trying to copy something else. They're literally trying to be like AFD. They're trying to be classical European style far right party. But you have to be a nation state for that, and it has a lot of other weird things. This is why Trump feels so wrong, even as this figure, because I don't think really he comprehends this.
If he was, I've never thought about it actually, but I think you put it really well, because I was just thinking as you were saying this, like if somehow we had maybe like greater borders between states.
All of your states speak the same language, basically. That's a big issue.
Yeah. I mean, we speak the same language, but have different values. I think that there's regional values that split us up. We have multiple cultures. That is something that's been observed by a lot of sociologists here.
I am not saying that. It's just that you don't perceive your differentness as much as, say, a French person from a Spanish person. And especially,
right.
If you learn multiple languages, you understand how different even the mentalities are here. It's not just Europeness. But Trump is now doing this. If he wants European-style nationalism and far-right stuff, I know about your fascist party and like your radicals there, and this is something else. Well, then, if you want European-style nationalism, then European-style assassinations is what you get. You cannot build one without the other. I'm sorry.
Right, though I do think that what we have are we don't really have European-style assassinations here, even now. I think we're very much returning what was more the norm in the United States 150 years ago. Maybe it would have made sense if Trump was like a military governor somewhere, that he could then like try to impose this like very, and I don't mean this as like necessarily an insult to Europeans, but a very archaic way of doing things. Like I do agree that he does seem to have that impulse as a leader, but he also seems to have a much more classic imperialist impulse that, at least for now, has kind of gone onto the back burner. I mean, no one is talking about all that talk about taking Greenland, taking Canada, taking the Panama Canal, all that stuff, which I thought was, honestly, that was, flabbergasting to me.
The problem is that currently, especially after what happened yesterday with Poland and everything, what Trump has done for us is that he's made us more autonomous. I tend to think that Donald Trump will not enjoy his success over here.
Of course not. Yeah. I mean, anyway, I don't want to get too sidetracked. We already lost somebody because we've been too scattered. I saw them in the chat saying.
I know. I'm trying to settle down here, and I will now shut up and tell me about the person who got next there.
Well, right, and I'm actually, now that I think about it, I'm not really clear on how. I mean, the man who was killed is this guy named Charlie Kirk. He's younger than us. He's, that in a lot of ways that makes it even worse because he was only 31. Yeah, I'm actually curious, like how well known he is outside of the States, because I'm assuming in the English-speaking world, I mean, like I said, I've heard an Australian commentator talking about this, British people talking about it, so I think he's probably pretty well known in the English-speaking world, but I don't know. I would defer to others on that. But here in the United States, he was probably, if he wasn't, he was going to be sort of the, I guess you could say, the voice of young conservatives here. The representative, I guess. He was sort of in the same vein as like Ben Shapiro and other people, but he had an organization that he started when he was in college called Turning Point USA that was essentially, he really was like kind of this, I don't want to make this comparison because I don't think he was as, respectable as him in a lot of ways in terms of his opinions, but he reminded me a lot of William F. Buckley. He had that potential, is what I mean, to be that much of a shaping force. And he became very influential in the second Trump administration. I believe he was, I don't know how responsible he was, but he was definitely giving them names they should put in their administration. He also was, famous for making pretty, I wouldn't say out of pocket commentary from a right wing perspective because we live in a world where Tucker Carlson's a thing. But yeah, he was saying stuff that like people have been characterizing in various ways as bigoted, and I would say that in some cases, yeah, especially against LGBT people. We have to remember that the stuff he's saying, he's citing Leviticus and all that. It's no worse than anything Pat Robertson or Jerry Falwell was saying before. But it's still, it rubs people the wrong way, and for obvious reasons. He's very Christian in that respect, obviously. People pointed out that he was like arguing about the Civil Rights Act being a mistake. And again, I don't really see that as special because I follow right-wing creators, and that's kind of like a thing they've been saying for a long time. Richard Hanania wrote a book a couple years ago that made that exact argument, and he's center right at this point as it gets, which is ironic because he started out in a pretty different, ugly place. But anyway, the point is that it doesn't really even matter if this guy was espousing like Holocaust denial. It's like he got shot in the neck in front of his family by a sniper who apparently has been caught as of this recording. I mean, we're not really clear on details. It was, and this adds a whole another angle. He was a 22-year-old Zoomer, I think son of a pastor or something. I'm not going to try to say anything else about the alleged killer yet, because I don't really think. It literally just came across my attention right before we started talking. And I'm not going to be here to litigate what Charlie Kirk said or didn't say, because I didn't really follow him. I never particularly liked him. I thought he was kind of insufferable. He was one of those, this is really what he was famous for. He was one of those debate me bro types. He was like a little more civil version of Steven Crowder. He was a lot like Ben Shapiro, like I said before, where his shtick was basically making college students look stupid because he's a smarter adult. That's just like, it's not my kind of content. I think he had a podcast, just him saying typical right-wing stuff. That's not my kind of content either. I know that I've, made fun of him in the past for having a small face, at least. I can remember saying that. But like, I never really, he was not somebody that like really crossed my radar all that much. But I knew who he was. He was doing one of his events in Utah where he was like, giving a talk, but also debating students, I think. And in the midst of that, this person sniped him from about 200 yards, and he died pretty damn quick. Within like 2 or 3 minutes of hearing that he was shot, President Trump announced that he had been killed. For some reason, that maybe we can unpack this a little bit. Oh, and somebody just asked for clarification. I didn't mean Charlie Kirk was a Zoomer. I was talking about the killer is a Zoomer. The killer is a 22-year-old. Allegedly. It might not be the guy, but it sounds like he probably is. Charlie Kirk is himself a millennial, a younger millennial. Like he was like 7-8 years younger than me or something like that.
This is something that I want to mention, by the way. Latvia, I'm not a millennial. For us, the generation was called Atmodas Pause. Like I said, the renewal generation, because for us, the whole period associated with that thing. But Gen Z is Gen Z already. And that sort of shows how we've shifted over to that stuff.
And you're taking influence from America. Yeah.
Yeah, we're taking a bit too much from that thing.
Well, that's a whole thing that we should maybe let's put a pin in that, because I think that is really interesting.
What I want to know is that what was his like most controversial moments, like biggest ideas?
I mean, I kind of skimmed over them as I understand it, and I'm mostly just reporting what other people who are trying to essentially rhetorically justify his killing are saying. He's very prolific. He's very influential. I mean, people shouldn't pretend that he's not influential. I mean, he absolutely was. And for better or worse, depending on your perspective. My view of him, as I understand it, again, I think I'm a little too poisoned by just observing internet radicalism, because like I said, in a world where we have people like Tucker Carlson or Ian Carroll, or people who are conspiratorially making implications about Jews and all that stuff, Charlie Kirk just never really registered to me as someone particularly noteworthy or dangerous or anything like that. I mean, He spread what seems to me to be pretty boilerplate, right-wing viewpoints. And, there's already people who have tried to say that he was killed by Mossad. And we can get into this too, because there's people who are saying, as you pointed out to me, or I think I found the article, but you told me, but I sent you an article from Newsweek talking about how some Russians were already saying it was Ukraine that did this. The point is that he never struck me as particularly crazy, but he had views that people very reasonably consider noxious. And I don't blame them for that. But again, it's like, I find it really disturbing right now that there just seems to be this fight. There shouldn't even be a fight, in my view, over whether or not this was acceptable or he had it coming because of what he said. Like, I don't understand that viewpoint. And maybe I'm too much of a free speech cuck on this, but I don't think that people should hurt for what they say, no matter how bad it is. I'm not a fan of that. To give you an example that I like to point out to people, because a lot of people I know who were horrified, rightly so, or are horrified when they hear about the story of Salman Rushdie getting the fatwa put on him for writing the satanic verses. They agree with, people who take the position I do. He should not have had a hit put out on him because he wrote a book, even though that book was arguably offensive towards pious Muslims. They might agree with that, but now they're willing to say, well, Charlie Kirk had it coming because he was saying things that did the sensibilities of progressive Americans. And yes, that is a fair comparison. It's not a false equivalence. I know a lot of people would say it is, but it's not, especially if you believe in free speech. Like that's sort of the bedrock feelings I have on this.
Well, truth to be told, I also offend a lot of people, and those people actively have tried to kill me. So I think that does try to go together,
Right, exactly. There's no like line, if you believe in free speech at least. There's no line where suddenly that standard stops mattering. Like if you justify, I'll say this to anybody, and I haven't even, maybe there's somebody in the chat who's getting mad at me already for saying this, but if you as a fan of Kristaps think that, oh, well, it's different because Charlie Kirk said horrible things, well, then you could literally say the same thing about the people of Kristaps. You literally could say that. They thought he said horrible things. They wanted to kill him. Why is that different? I don't think it's different at all, in principle at least. If you want to dissect the differences in what they were saying and then make qualitative assessments of that, go right ahead. But I mean, if one wants to do that, that's not caring about freedom of speech, freedom of expression, association, whatever. Anyway, sorry. This is the kind of thing that gets me worked up.
I just want to post the thing that I will be showing on stream, because this speech of his might be kind of an iconic thing. Let us see what is this all about. It seems pretty authoritative since it's in a national convention.
Oh yeah, it was his speech at the RNC. Yeah.
I still hope national conventions are taken seriously by a bit. It's not very long. So I will now listen to this, and so will everyone on the stream, and then we'll talk.
Hey everyone, Annette here. Thanks for listening to another episode of The Eastern Border. This show is possible thanks to your support. So if you like what you hear, head over to patreon.com/The Eastern Border and help us keep it going. Even small contributions make a difference. And don't forget, there's also a Discord. If you want to join the community, chat with Kristaps, share memes, or just learn more about history, come hang out. You'll find the link in the show notes. Thanks again, and now, back to the episode.
Okay, I heard what he said. I'm better off than young Americans. Gen Z can't afford homes, that everyone's going to be renting, they get married, the usuals.
Well, that's nice. He forgot millennials. We can't afford homes either.
Hey,
Yeah.
You can't afford homes. I'm good.
Well, yeah. Those of us who are smart enough to live on the West Coast or East Coast, yeah.
Then again, yeah, that place was super cheap. So obviously Latvia doesn't have as you guys, but still, this sounded pretty normal to me.
It's pretty well. He's also at the RNC. It's going to be pretty cleaned up. I mean, I'm not saying that because as I understand it, his more controversial statements have been made mostly on his podcast and in interviews he's done. I don't know. Maybe in the debates he's had too. The only thing I can say that I know about him that I would consider a positive thing was that unlike a lot of people in the last year or so on the right, he actually he was at, I believe it was at one of his organization's events. I think it was at a Turning Point event that actually Tucker Carlson spoke at. Charlie did at one point was he made it very clear that he thought anti-Semitism was a problem on his side. You know, in a way, this is why I kind of made the Buckley comparison, is that he kind of was making moves towards trying to find a way to excise that. I mean, obviously that you can only do so much. But my only point is just that to take that stand that isn't necessarily very popular among a lot of your fans, because obviously there is an anti-Semitism problem on the American right now. I'm not going to give him credit for that. It's the bar is on the floor, guys. I'm not saying that this is like some incredibly admirable thing. It's still not a negative thing. It's a positive thing. But beyond that, yeah, I never really got this sense that he was all that noxious or all that valuable. A lot of people have been like really canonizing the guy, and I'm not really a fan of that either. There's just a lot of really bad reactions right now, including, you know, people blaming him for his own death. You know, look how short of a skirt he was wearing, that kind of shit. People pointing out that he was a hypocrite for being pro Second Amendment, and he's a hypocrite because he's dead. Like, I'm sorry, like that's not going to resonate, at least with me. Then you have people who are lashing out from the right, which I think is something that is a problem. We have this guy named Clay Higgins, who's a representative for Louisiana, I believe, saying that he's going to, quote unquote, go after their businesses and permitting. Their businesses will be blacklisted aggressively. They will be kicked from every school. Their driver's licenses should be revoked. I'm basically going to cancel with extreme prejudice these evil, sick animals who celebrated Charlie Kirk's assassination. So, like, I don't know how much influence this guy has in Congress, but, you know, that kind of gives you an idea of, like, how rabid some people of influence are getting because of this. And, you know, it's just, there's just a lot of, like, really, like, unhinged reactions going on in the moment with this. There was already, maybe more has happened. I mean, I've seen one video of actual violent altercation happening. Apparently there was this vigil going on for Charlie Kirk. And then some guy in a scooter goes by and just yells, "Fuck Charlie Kirk." And the crowd basically exploded, chased him down, and beat the shit out of him until cops intervened. That absolutely is concerning, to put it mildly. But yeah, I think somebody in the chat said something about how this kind of thing is very online. And I was going to say, I think that is really sort of the takeaway from this I'm noticing, is that aside from just that example I gave, I haven't really seen any real world consequences from this yet. There is at least one person in the chat who's saying that, like, he said all these awful things and therefore he had it coming. And that's just, I mean, I'm sorry, like, you can believe that, but again, that can be applied to anybody then, including our friend Chris here, our fearless leader, because he was saying horrible things. And I'm saying that in air quotes, Kristaps. I'm not saying that literally, but to Vatniks, you were saying horrible things. You had it coming by that logic.
Look, one thing though is after this you have to watch Yurievich, that one fragment I sent you, because he does say horrible things. Look, I don't know him at all, but this seems like, and I will read what Rob thinks here. To me, all this seems, well, obviously no one here is actually talking about this as much, except like very few people, because we have bigger issues right now. Sorry, we're like, it gets mentioned somewhere between Poland and all this stuff happening with Article 4. That's our number one news segment here.
Yeah.
But I've seen a few people blaming, like you said, weirdly enough, somehow Ukraine and politicians who are like not even like remotely close to that effort. That was a bit weird.
Let's jump to that a little quick, for a little bit, because I think that I really am curious what the hell could possibly have justified, quote unquote, Ukraine doing this. Like, it's just wild to me.
I need to know that one, because that's confusing.
Well, I mean, I'm on the Newsweek article. There's probably a lot more stuff that's been said in Russian language. I'll always put it in chat for everybody to look at. I'll just read I'll read the top of this right here. Russian officials allied with Vladimir Putin have responded to the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk by blaming the left and Ukraine supporters for political violence in the U.S. Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev and Kirill Dmitriev.
Okay, please stop there. We're done. Because I'm sorry, if you quote Dmitry Medvedev as someone like, no,
They were
come
the
on,
ones saying it sounds like. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. At that moment, if Medvedev says something, just yeah, cool. Well, you can stop talking. It doesn't matter. It's stupid.
Well, and that's the thing is, and this is something where I think it is fair to say that Charlie Kirk was a sort of a toxic voice for those of us who actually care about Ukrainian sovereignty, because he was one of those anti-NATO. He was very much an outspoken critic of Zelensky, which, was the in vogue position to take on, the MAGA right here in the United States. And I think that in that respect, that does make him hard to like for a lot of people. But that's the logic they're using. That's the logic that Medvedev and their types are using, is that, well, he was critical of Ukraine, so you killed him. I mean, that's essentially what they're implying.
They also claim that the only one who benefited from all this affair with Poland and stuff also was Ukraine. So, look, they would say this all the time because that's just stupid. Also, look, Ukraine is at war with you guys, and that's interesting because if Ukraine actually did this, then that means they have agents everywhere, so they can like kill politicians in other countries and the other side of the board. So why haven't they done anything inside? Okay, it's a mess. Like, it's very obviously stupid.
Yeah, Medvedev is going hard on, like, I mean, he linked Kirk's murder to what he called, quote, a variety of left-wing liberal scum who support Banderite Kyiv. Like, I'm sorry, like, if you're invoking Bandera at that point, like, what are you even doing? Like, I guarantee you, not a single person crassly celebrating Charlie Kirk's murder knows who Stepan Bandera is. None of them know that.
You really have to check out what Igorievich said. You not only are Banderas, you are devil worshippers and literally possessed by demons with cannibalism. But the whole mess is that, okay, this guy just managed to anger someone, so he got shot.
Well, and somebody in the chat posted a video of the killer. I haven't seen this yet. I mean, like I said, I only have seen the beginning reports of this guy they caught, who is a kid. I mean, yes, he's an adult. He's 22, but at this point, I think it's clear that Gen Z is maturing at the rate of a snail. So, emotionally speaking, it's striking to me that the assassins that have been clipped or caught, to put it bluntly, Crooks, the guy who took a shot at Trump, and Luigi Mangione is a little older, I think, but I think he's still a Zoomer too. And this kid, they're all in their 20s. They're all young people in their 20s who seem to have a very black-pilled view of the world. On the one hand, I don't blame them, but on the other hand, I think there's something to that. They have a shared experience that not many of us do, which is their most formative years were spent in lockdown. And I'm not getting into the whole like, oh, was lockdown bad? I'm just stating the fact that they were coming of age at probably the most contentious time in U.S. history in the last like 40 years, which was COVID, and that affected them. It pushed them online. It pushed them into these toxic spaces where they poisoned themselves with superficial radical politics and a sense of there being nothing that one can do except maybe take matters into their own hands. That's sort of my working hypothesis.
Alex, are Americans such pussies?
Yes.
Over here, we got that and war and real like overall, and we don't have an increase in political murder.
I am. You can't really see it on my face because we're very far away from each other. But if we were sitting across the table from each other, you would see how gross I feel saying that, and how I want to make this clear to everybody listening. I am embarrassed to be saying that stuff out loud in this context because I'm talking to you. I'm embarrassed. Again, this is like, we look unhinged, like I was saying at the beginning of our conversation, but that's really what I'm saying, is that when you start looking outside of your own bubble or borders in this case, and you look at Ukrainians have been going through, what Palestinians and Israelis have been going through, frankly, what everybody on the eastern border is going through, thinking that the shoe is going to drop any minute, and for good reason. It's like, it makes me think like,
it's really fun being Latvia. It's really fun hearing in the news every day that there's going to be blood.
Especially when you're living so close to the border. Yeah. No. I mean, and that's my point. Like, I like how you put it, are we such pussies? But it's more like, the way I look at it is, are we really just that bored?
Oh yeah, that's a better point. I'm sorry.
I mean, I'm not saying things are great in America, but like, it's like, Well, no. I think what you said is fine because I agree. But are we so bored? This is kind of a digression, sort of like speculative armchair psychoanalysis of these people. But I think there's something to the idea that the younger generation has some kind of rot. It's much deeper than politics.
I have just a statement that I want to say about Zoomers. I've been focusing on this. I've been seeing this a lot as well, and I've been talking not just to Rob, but also 20-year-olds. And I know the harm that they're going through because a bunch of them listen to Andrew Tate and think that that's actual stoicism. And a lot of those things, that's one of the things why I'm starting to do things on YouTube. Because I'll be making with Rob so that 20-year-olds actually listen to me. But I have the academical degree, and also I have suffered through war, and I know how to deal with shit. So we're making a bit of a program with Rob, with another 20-year-olds who are going to help me reach out to them, because I definitely want to address some issues like their loneliness epidemic and their so-called complexes and all this stuff. Basically, that's what I would do. But this is going to be a later project. But
Well, and I was gonna say, Joe in the chat made a good point that people in Europe and Asia were also locked down in a lot of cases. Well, and to be clear, there was a clash, I think, a cultural clash between lockdown and I guess what you'd say American sense of American normalcy, maybe. I don't know. Again, we also have a lot of other issues that I get the feeling don't exist in other parts of the world, or if they do, they manifest differently. Either way, I think there's something about American psychology that is different.
I think that it's a mix between a lot of things that also affects us now. It's not just Americans. Don't get me wrong here. A lot of things that used to work, like used to function really well culturally, and having your job and all the stuff that the people who want a golden age, like that used to work, and then it didn't. But it didn't happen randomly. It happened because it was fucked over. For example, the system that the people built all over the place, like to you after the Great Depression, other places right after World War II, that system worked. And that was like much less brutally capitalist. The systems need to change themselves. And now we're like trying to fix this stuff up. I know the times have changed, that we live in a different era than before for multitude of reasons. Like the end of the Cold War, like post-Soviet era is done, and we can argue about how would you name it over there. To you, maybe you guys it ended in 2001 even. I don't know. But that old world has died, and we have to move ahead, and it's just messing with everyone's heads, basically, a lot. We have to figure this one out.
As much as I am tempted, and I think we all have been, to suggest that 9/11, which is what you mean by 2001, of course, is the inflection point of how things really
for you,
shifted mentally here. For us, yeah, that's what I mean. For Americans, I'm not gonna rule out 9/11 as a significant thing, because it was, obviously. I think because the downstream effects of that included the war on terror, war in Iraq, and the complete disillusionment of American involvement overseas that still exists today, and ironically animates so much of the MAGA right, despite the fact that Trump intervenes just as much, if not more, than past presidents have. But let's not go there. The point is, 9/11 did have a significant effect, but I'm wondering how much of the before and after point was maybe the Great Recession of 07, 08, because of how that directly affected millennials for sure, especially millennials my age, who were literally just getting out of college as a job it cratered, and completely disproved everything that we had been taught about how the world works up until that point.
I was with that one. I was very lucky because at that point I literally entered college. That started my 3 years of like I already didn't have money. Nobody had money. I lived separately already because my weird family history. I was dirt poor, but I didn't feel more awful than anyone else really. We ate ramen noodles and pelmeni. So.
What was the Great Recession like in Latvia in particular, but the Baltics and Eastern Europe in general? Because it affected everybody, as I understand it. But like, what was your experience with that? Because obviously, I was at the epicenter. But like,
let me ask my friend Rob, because I was away from my parents, but I didn't have any savings in any sort of stock yet. Robert, the guy that I'm gonna read his response about this stuff. His family lost a lot because they could put in some savings in stock, as I recall. It was literally my first year in college, and at that point, I was more interested in literally anything else.
We're really paying attention to it, yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing too, is that I think a lot of people my age, in America at least, didn't really register how much of a disruption the recession was, except for those who were trying to get jobs, or especially those who maybe a little older than me did get a job as soon as they got out of college, and then that job disappeared within 6 months. I mean, that's a very disorienting thing to go through. You add a lot of other things that started happening around the time. Somebody mentioned the rise of cable news. I think that's a very good way of putting it, because cable news, sort of before social media, it was like a transitional thing where they were in essence chasing the algorithm, as we say now, but what was chasing audience engagement. I think that really started the death spiral, or it accelerated the already existing death spiral of American news media. The golden age of American media is long gone, especially now. But back then, it was even, I would say, it was on its way out pretty easily, and that's just going to accelerate problems. And the reason why I bring up the recession as a moment is because it was after that we started to see the rise of ideologically coded but outside of political party movements. To a lesser degree, you had the Tea Party on the right, which got absorbed pretty effectively by the Republicans. And then on the left, though, I think a lot of people, I think it was much more complicated and diverse than the Tea Party was. But then you had Occupy in 2011. And those were the two sort of moments two movements rather, that I think represented the beginning of what then turned into a full-blown populist backlash that then gave us Donald Trump in 2015 and then 2016 when he was elected. But also, I think, kind of lit a fuse that's just still been going this whole time, and has, like, maybe fuse is a bad metaphor, but it's been flaring up in various ways of the last 10 years or so.
Rob is going to come over and talk about the biggest trauma of his life, and then read his own stuff. Yeah, to the chamber. Yes. Come to me, comrade. Come.
The chamber.
I have a nice little sign on that.
I just like the idea of it being being like a dungeon or something like that, an interrogation chamber. You should make it look like a Soviet
What do you mean make look like it? Comrade.
Wait, it's just like scattered things all over the room. Is that how they interrogated people? I thought it was just like a dank cell with a chair.
we are remember the fact that a lot of stuff has just been moved away.
Right.
It used to be even more messy, but like right, it used to be even more messy because then it was like more stuff here. But right now all this is happening.
Yeah.
Okay, give me a second, please, because allow everyone to catch up on this stuff. I'm gonna go and pull him in because headphones on and do your work. Also read that thing. Come on. Chop.
About what exactly?
You will be informed. Don't.
All right. Okay.
Hi, Rob. Well, I was asking.
Good evening.
Oh, good evening. Yes, or good afternoon for me. But yeah, I was asking. His experience was when the Great Recession hit in 2007, 2008 overseas, because obviously, like, I know what it was like here in America, and I know that it affected the world, obviously, but I'm not aware of how it affected, like, people living in Latvia or in Baltics or just honestly Eastern Europe in general. So I was just, and he said that you had
Yes, because that the 2008 financial crisis is the first thing that I remember from my childhood.
Okay.
At the time, I was about 4, I think. Yeah, 4 years old or something like that. So it was like
making me feel old here.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of that going around. But basically, because it was like one of my first like formative memories is our monthly budgets became much smaller than they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Struggle meals appearing as a daily necessity. And my mother, who was she had me very young, she was like 22, and she didn't have a higher education, basic jobs, and Latvia. We were quite a poor country then, and it was not easy living by any standard. So yeah, she had a child, and she had to raise him, and there was also a recession going on in which Latvia almost went bankrupt.
Jeez.
Because one of our banks, just like in the US, where the banks heavily over-leveraged themselves to the point where small little domino effect in one part of the economic system led to one of the largest financial crisis, Great Depression. It also caused ripple effects also in Europe, and in Latvia, where the largest bank had to be bailed out by the government. I mean, obviously for the US standards, it was like almost €1 billion. And I know a very large bank, a ginormous bank. all of our foreign currency reserves were emptied, and the only reason we didn't go bankrupt was because there was a IMF package set up very soon after that, and basically the government was bailed out, and we had similar to Greece, but definitely not to the extent.
Right.
We were willing to cut our public services. We were willing to cut everything.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was going to say it sounds familiar, honestly. I mean, though the bailouts that happened here were, it was less of, the government wasn't getting bailed out. The government was bailing out banks and companies, specifically auto manufacturers, like I said, banks. And that was obviously very controversial at the time, remains controversial to this day. I am not an economist, so I can't speculate whether it was a good or bad idea. I've heard compelling arguments on both counts with that, but
well, that's the funny thing about Latvia, because the Baltics countries were so young because of the state of finances during the Great Recession. It meant that nobody was willing to give us loans.
Yeah.
So countries like the US, the UK, you could get loans and you could patch up the holes in your budgets and do all that.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't, because nobody would lend us any money, which was the reason we almost went bankrupt, because we had a giant deficit from 2008 to 2009. On top of that, the bank bailout, it quite literally dried up our finances, and the only lender left was just the IMF, with horrible, terrible, things that need to be done for that loan to be approved.
I was gonna say,
it's also being poor, so that's fine. Yeah, this is the guy that I'm going to be doing the thing, trying to help the 20-year-olds and do something good for them, making content here. So this is Rob.
Yes, hello.
If you decide to punch him, use only left arm. Right arm too strong. He does not deserve right arm. Punch only with left arm.
Yeah, I mean that does sound well, and on the personal level, that sounds insane. I mean, I knew people had it rough here, but I don't think I knew anybody who had literally have, as you called it, struggle meals. I don't think we had that.
Yes.
Maybe in some places we did, but I not that I ever.
It was white bread with mayo, exactly. Yes, that was one of them.
Oh my God. That sounds like we had that in the Great Depression. Cabbage soup was a big thing that my older family members had to go through.
That is because I would say also, to be fair as well, even though we had it rough, we did not have it the most rough, because for better or for worse, my mother worked in the private sector and she had always worked in the service sector, which was hit hard, of course, but it wasn't decimated.
Right.
If you were a public employee in any government job, teacher, a doctor, a nurse, basically anything in the public service, salaries got cut 30-40% in 1 year, because we had to make the budget have a, not go into the minus.
Yeah.
And we used extreme cuts in everything across the board.
So remember that we are the size of Belgium and Netherlands combined, but our population is 2 million people. 52% forest, and everyone from the Soviet. He grows potatoes. He has a farm thing. So we haven't lost that idea.
Yeah.
We're not going to starve. Christoph's point is correct. No matter the financial situation, we're not going to starve, because during the 90s it was even worse, and during the 80s, even in the old Soviet system. So we were never completely reliant on the financial markets letting us to the wonderland and of peace and happiness and everything that is beautiful.
Also, food here in general quite expensive. By the way, I can congratulate you today. Big Mac combo at McDonald's cost €9. It finally hit €9, which is $10.50.
I think it's more expensive here
for us. Yeah. Also, our median salary is about €1,500, which is compare that to the prices. Also, our rent prices, like the apartment that I'm €450 plus bills. Our rent prices are.
Every time this comes up, in our conversation, so mad.
We also grow a lot of our own food, so we can buy stuff locally as well. Oh wait, what? What does matter?
No, I think the best part is our Big Mac combo costs around $10.56 USD, but our minimum wage is €700. I think that is a much better way to see how much an average person earns, and
Right.
we also have a quite a large disparity between people in the city because we only have one real city. You know, on any normal scale, we have people who live in Riga who earn good wage.
Comrade?
Yes,
That
yes. He wants to protect the Latvian honor.
loads
I'm
of
sorry.
money.
The truth hurts.
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, you're talking about something that I get the feeling probably is pretty. I won't say universal. It's definitely something to relate to, though, where there is a giant wealth gap between those living in, well, in general, but in living in cities versus living in rural areas. But it's not as simple, I think, as a lot of people have been pointing out, because a lot of blue collar jobs in this country, truck drivers get paid very well, all things considered, for example. And so we have a very different concept of, I guess you could say working class versus, the blue collar class, the office class. I don't know. Yeah, the original thing that I was thinking though was just that, like, when talking about like how much the recession and the effects of it impacted people, at least here, but also impacted people everywhere. I think that we can't really underestimate how much that actually probably pushed us in the direction that we've been going in.
Oh, definitely, almost Europe especially. I think with the U.S. because of your relative strength of your economy at all times, you have a very strong domestic market, which we just don't have. Our recovery is always slower. It's always
Right.
takes twice or three times as long. And we are way more affected by global markets shifting one way or the other. And in some ways, a lot of the things that happened during the 2010s, which is Brexit, the Syrian crisis, the migrant crisis, the rise of far right parties all across Europe, the 4 years of war, and European Union, the European Commission becoming now a crisis center 24/7, almost similar to how the White House used to be, handling 50,000 problems at once and doing the best they can while not even having the powers that the national government has.
Yeah.
It all kind of comes back to 2008, because 2008,
Mm-hmm.
the hit that the European economies took, and the hit that are just our general wealth, that people, like, for example, the people who were already retiring by that point weren't hit that hard. I would say, like, German pensioners were fine. They had their wealth from all their years of working, and they were perfectly fine, just coasting off to the going all across Europe and spending their hard-earned money on vacations.
I almost wanted to make a joke about. I wanted to make a joke about them. Their pensions were very nice and stable from stolen Jewish art.
Yes.
That's
Well,
that's not fair. That's not fair. But
it's fair because it's funny. That's why I said
yeah, exactly. Well, and it probably did happen in a couple of cases. Let's not pretend otherwise. In fact, I think there was a story recently about a stolen Jewish painting turning up at like an auction in Argentina. I'm not going to say where because I don't remember where, but there was like something about that. And I was like, are we really still dealing with that?
for legal reasons, all of this is allegedly.
Allegedly, exactly. Yeah.
Yes, unlike Kristaps, I will cover all my legal bases.
Exactly. Yeah.
But the people who got the hit, I think, most hard were the people who had just which I think is in a sense a similarity between the U.S. and is the millennials.
Mhm.
Here, I guess less, because yes, as Kristaps can say more, because he technically would count as a millennial in the U.S.
Uh-huh.
Even though he just the 90s in Latvia were not this peaceful, nice time where we had a very boring government and everything beautiful and it was the end of history and all was well. So that was not the so that's why the
I feel
equivalent doesn't really
so.
work there.
I just got to throw this out there. I feel really bad for Francis Fukuyama, but he did that to himself using that term.
He dug his hole and now he has to lie in it. I'm sorry.
Right, and
He made
you
such a big bet. End of history.
He did with that phrase, and people have said, well, he didn't actually mean that. He did say the phrase, okay? Let's just stop. And he has also walked it back a fair bit, if I remember right, in his later writing, because clearly he was wrong. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not a good idea to look at the world in terms of mega ideologies, like liberal capitalism versus Soviet communism. It was never that simple to begin with.
Oh, for sure.
And I think that was, but I think if you're raised in throughout the 20th century, starting at the end of World War II, that really is what the world looks like. There were people for a while saying that the new dynamic, and this is something that Fukuyama's sort of I guess you could call him like a colleague, but also sort of a different viewpoint. Samuel Huntington was the one saying things about how it's now it's going to be Western style democratic capitalism versus jihadist Islamism, which I think I see why he said that and why he thought that, but it was a complete misfire. He didn't realize that was an incarnation of something much bigger. And I think it's what we're going through right now, which is just generally the rise of anti-Western populism. And that could be European, it could be American. It doesn't really matter from. I mean, I think we see it. I mean, we kind of talked about this, Kristaps and I, when we were a big group of us were doing a sort of hate watch or hate react to the meeting at the White House between Zelensky and JD Vance and Donald Trump. I think you look at JD Vance, he's an example of an anti-Western populist, but just who happens to be American. I would include Trump in that, but I don't think Trump, I think of him as, he's non-ideological. He just attaches his cart to whatever.
He is. That's how I perceive him. He is. But okay. Another thing I had to mention before I
please
bring back the host of this goddamn podcast back. I wrote a little thing about regarding the assassination because I saw a lot of things online and they did not please me in any way. So I just posted this on the server, and I think this is as a comprehensive view of political violence as I've personally put out there. So I'll read it out and give your thoughts.
Please, I'm looking forward to it.
From my perspective, most certainly driven and shaped by the fact I do not live in the U.S., is the initial emotional reaction, post-initial thoughtful emotional reaction. So, the first one without really thoughts, just emotional neurons firing. The second one with a little bit of thought, and then the last, obviously, the long-term consequences. As I see it, he led a life built at least partially on lies, using rhetoric to demonize people and groups of people who in many cases were and still are the most vulnerable in non-large city America. I still recognize him for what he was. Just because he was assassinated doesn't change where people die all the time. I didn't like him before, I didn't like him now. That fact of life hasn't changed. Thus, my initial reaction was after, wow, because it's an assassination. It's shocking. It was mainly joyful and positive, as I did not associate him with any that is positive. After which, thinking for longer than a few minutes, a sense of empathy and slight sorrow for his family and loved ones who were not responsible for what he did during his life. I'm not wallowing on the floor. They did not and do not hold a special place in my life, but there's a human element there. I mean, I've lost people myself. I know what that feels like, and a sense of empathy is, I think, as human as anything. And yeah, his wife, his children, his other family. Again, they are not responsible for what he did during his life. So I feel perfectly fine, feeling a little sad for what that they lost a significant part of their lives. And then obviously the latter, which is the speculations and fears of the societal consequences, which can only usually lead in a very bad direction. Because I am at best I'm a pragmatist, at worst I'm an extreme pessimist. So I do not see this whole situation any positive at all.
And our next project is to motivate 20-year-olds.
Yes.
We can't tell them that it's gonna be good, but we can tell them just tough up, man. Not that to basically that stuff. Also, we have zero media from 2008. I don't know why.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
2008, the lost year. So I felt it was important to write this little paragraph just for here, knowing that people on the server, and I guess now on the podcast as well, are well educated and clever people, so will most likely understand what I am putting down, because I've seen people outright celebrate his death, condemn it fully, or give reasons for their stance in either way. That was at the time. Since then, a lot of people have backed down and sort of done the whole middle ground and not celebrating. Things have changed in the last 48 to 72 hours, I should say. But nonetheless, I think the point still stands, which is very little had been painted in more than one color, which I think disregards my own, and I can only guess at least a few others people's emotions and the reactions on their end. Yes, at least another person probably felt what I felt.
I think some people are forcing themselves to feel glee about this more than they actually do, because I think in some cases they did feel legitimate glee after it happened, because they, as you said, it's an emotional reaction. And then when the reality of what just sank in at a human level hit them, they were faced with a choice of either admitting they did something callous or said something rude, and essentially were just being assholes, or they can double down and try to justify what they said. Because honestly, it's easier to double down, especially on the internet.
I think but I think that's the thing which is soon expand on is there's a third way, not the third way labor democratic movements. Please, good lord, do not no associations. No associations.
not a red brown alliance.
But basically, yes, all three reactions I had still circle around in my head and exist simultaneously. Sense of relief, there's one less member of the demolition crew. A slight sense of sorrow for the people who did lose a father, brother, husband, etc. And acceptance, gained unwillingly, that this is not an outlier but an indicator for current political moment within the US, with the expectation of further attempts, both successful and unsuccessful, still to come.
Well, I just want to say that third thing you pointed out, that's where my brain has mostly been at. That's why I wanted to talk to Kristaps about this, because it's as you said, it's like it feels like a new norm has been established or has been revealed, and of what we're going to see later. But you had more. I want to let you finish.
So my view of the man himself has not changed, and his death doesn't ultimately change that. But I also recognize publicly celebrating his death is, besides unseemly and uncouth, adding and abetting political violence. Because no matter how he carried himself, nonetheless, it is quite notable and public figure in the sphere of politics, and perhaps would be best putting aside one's personal emotions towards the person by not triumphing the death of a political opponent and not solidifying a path which the current historical circumstances are only happy to help cultivate.
I would celebrate the death of Margaret Simonyan and Victor and Solovyov.
We are at war with them. I, as far as I know,
it's a little different. Yeah.
As far as I know, the U.S. is officially our ally. I hope it stays that way. I do not want to be on the other side of the American guns.
No one does, and for good reason.
This is our
future PM.
Please keep sending the money. Please keep sending the checks. Thank you,
Rob. I thought that was the best analysis that I've actually heard. I think maybe Kristaps is right. You're a future politician, future PM in that respect.
I actively choose to work in the diplomatic corps instead.
Please do, yes, because that actually, we need more good diplomats. I mean, obviously, I don't know how much good that'll do in the U.S. because apparently we don't really care about diplomacy all that much, but yeah, I mean, what you said resounded a lot with me, because it reminds me also of all people, the best response I've seen from an American politician. And on one hand, I shouldn't be surprised, but on the other hand, it's just because I don't really share his politics. But Bernie Sanders has had, in my opinion, the best response from an American politician so far, because he looked at it from the broader context and of keeping America as sane as possible as being his goal. Because he recognized exactly what you were about what this is indicative of.
Alex pulled out the fact that Newsweek posted Russian officials use Charlie Kirk's death to attack Ukraine. And I'm like, okay, Newsweek, serious newspaper. He just starts to quote this, and first line is Dmitry Medvedev starts, and then I just shut.
Well, there's probably more being said on Telegram and things like that, I'm sure. But yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Alex, but I have been way too long in the Kristaps sphere of insanity and neuron death, where the words Dmitry Medvedev only bring either extreme laughter or my brain just shuts off immediately. Just it's better that way. It's better that way.
It is. I can imagine. I can imagine.
Oh, of course, yes, yes. There's other people, notable characters of this household. I would even say. Oh God, please don't mention him.
I can't hear what Kristaps is saying, but I can only imagine he's bringing up Alexander Dugin.
He's bringing up Yuri Yevich, which
Oh, Yuri
apparently you
Yevich,
had to listen to, and you didn't listen to the end. And you know what I will say about that, which will probably be the last thing, and then I'll go. Which is, if I had to suffer through that, the whole thing, and had to process that, so will you. That is your curse.
I'm. It's my homework. I'm going to do it after this. Yeah, and my curse, homework and curse.
Just have a bottle of something ready.
I will look into that.
Just in case. you might have to put feelers out.
I think so.
Just in case. Well, yes, but that is it. Well, it was nice talking to you.
Well, thanks for giving me the insight. Nice talking to you. Nice to meet you, man.
Hello, back again. I was digging through my whole list of newspapers and everything. Like I thought that we had something. It's just weird. Nothing from 2008 at all.
Or just that you don't have though. There was you guys didn't suddenly have you didn't have a newspaper for 1 year.
Well, okay. Look. I will now reveal my secrets. You'll be able to see this stuff. Okay.
I can see the big word Stalin on one of them.
Those are all Stalin books. Those are all more Stalin books.
Yeah, I mean, I have quite a stack myself, but I can't really my camera, so you'll just have to take my word for it. It's mostly stuff. I have Anne Applebaum's The Iron, Norman Naimark's Fires of Hatred, Keith Lowe's Savage Continent. This collection here called Stalinism and Nazism. I mean, I'm surrounded with joyful subjects right now.
I have a book that I really want to show you because I want to send this to Scott to Sean from Advent of Computing but this is only in Latvian, and sadly, I really would like to get in touch with Jasper to get this translated. Look at this stuff. This is called How Pēcis Basicāns Taught Maya Saprātiņa Programming. This is a Soviet guide to program BASIC in 1986 created. And it's actually really good, and it's made for teenagers. Caricature people were presumed not to know anything. And this was written by a guy who literally used to run internet, all of our Latvian internet for couple of years, and he is doing computer science. It's really funny. The problem is that these books are they didn't make a lot of them, and there's like a bunch of code printed in them too. So I'm gonna figure that one out. But I had to use the thing because I promised this stuff. Alex, do you know what I'm gathering money for my fundraiser thing? Are you informed?
I think you might have mentioned it, but please remind me.
Okay, I will. I sent you the link. See, we're doing. I was contacted by a bunch of people who help Ukrainians get their armored cars, and we're working with Car for Ukraine Volunteering Initiative to get we started out a bit small. We have 5,500 euros to raise.
Mm-hmm.
We're about more than halfway there. We have raised 2,778, and this will go to acquire a new vehicle, armored vehicle for a Revanche group, like tactical group that works with Ukrainian intelligence directorate. I have mentioned them a lot, but this is a real chance to actually do something useful. And they also, of course, recorded the message on YouTube for Eastern Board listeners. So that's also something that you should check out. I mean,
yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I'm gonna, you know what? I'll probably put this out on Twitter.
So,
you know what? I'll just be really gross and cynical about it, and just make it seem like it's about Charlie Kirk's assassination, and people will actually pay attention to it. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not doing that. No, I'm not doing that. I'm not. I'm just kidding.
This is my first time working with these people. They have all the documentation and everything. They have About Us section where you can read all the people who get the cars. You can contact them. You get cool prizes. I think that as this is my first time working with them, I wasn't supposed to be assigned 5,500 euros. But two people just quit at the last moment. So me and this lady was stuck there for this. So it would be really nice if you guys would help us out. In total they're gathering 110,000 for the whole unit. for the whole squad for these guys are doing this. It just makes me nervous and bit kicks back all the bad memories. But yeah, I mean, we can do this. We're like more. It's not that bad. It would be really nice because seeing all this stuff that's happening here and maybe to help ending the war, that'd be nice. And these guys actually, we can reach out to them. They're responsive. They're responsible. And yeah, if you listen to my last episode, you know I had to answer a lot of silly, stupid emails about from very callous people as well. But so far, besides like all this, it does kind of feel that the media space is again shifting around. Like this is going to be loud for a couple of days, and then what?
I mean, yeah, we're already in a period of time where, like, to even talk about Ukraine, the war with Russia, to even have that register with most Americans is a tall order unless somehow Trump is involved. Like, Americans are our attention span is notoriously bad when it comes to things like this. Now, maybe if it directly affected us in some way, like if we did have boots in the ground, maybe we would care more. But somehow, I'm even skeptical of that at this point. But we're also very inward focused, and I think that kind of feeds into what we've been talking about with this assassination. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how we would redirect attention in a more productive way in that direction. But I mean, like I said, when it comes to trying to help people who are, fighting for their lives right now, I'm all for that. Obviously,
it's what I decided to do for my birthday, and I had suffered a bunch of horrible migraines, so I wasn't able to truly for a week.
Yeah.
So that was just weird. Trying to make this work because again, I am really really bad at marketing. I can't do it like at all. This is just pretty horrible. Meanwhile, though, I have another thing that I wanted to show you, just to cleanse your head a bit, because we need something that is also stupid but funny. See, Evita bought this book for €3. Welcome to Latgale in my heart. This is an American person who decided to go to Latgale and write a bunch of poems about it. This is all poems. It came out this year, basically. Well, you judge yourself. This is the first time I can read you English poetry written by an American. I don't know from where, but about my home region, because this is Rezekne, which is maybe I am somehow foreign to the American artistry and the modern American poetry in this, so that maybe people can just, because again, we really need to do something bit less serious than war, death, and oh yeah, here's my favorite one: Ausmeņa kebab, Latgalian kebab. Really kind of big, and the only one we got over there, and he wrote a poem about it. If you ever go to or stop in Rezekne, in any season, just if you're there, don't hesitate to visit glorious Ausmeņa kebab, because then you'll have a satisfied stomach. It isn't an unusual meal. People there make it Latgalian real. They use local ingredients and hands to get the genuine feel. Just when you enter it, you understand it's a local star, because Ausmeņa means an aurora, so a small miracle there. It's not an aurora, but fine. It isn't known that it's owned by the local G's from Ausmeņa Records, whose rap is the real deal. Such unique places aren't anywhere near.
It's not the worst I've ever heard, but it's definitely up there.
Yeah, I mean, if this would have cost me more, I would be sad. But for €3, this is a perfect book.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's like what, like $4
approximately, because a Tallinn, Texas bar message. Simple things simply matter in life. Good old country music with a heart. A pure smile in a waitress' eyes. A cold rusty beer in a pint glass. A romantic candle shining on my hand when I'm writing my modest lines. Sometimes we need to work hard to bring these beautiful moments to our lives. We don't have 9 lives as cats. Try to enjoy life to the fullest before we die. Of course, it's laughing. There's death in there. I don't want to end on a sad rhyme, so I'll add some advice to make you shy. If you help others, you'll have the greatest time. No lie.
I gotta say, I did like the descriptor of saying a rusty beer in a pint glass. That's a very good way of describing a rusty taste. I like it. But romantic views of the United States are not really going to resonate with me right now, as much as I do really believe in a lot of values.
I think we're going to wrap it up tonight. But nice to talk to you. And always, as always, just if you have an idea that you want to talk to me, either making a podcast, proper recordings, or just hang out and chat, please let me know. And
well, we've spoken about political violence before, and there's more. Maybe we can tune in for a special conversation at a future time because I have a couple ideas.
Okay, до свидания, товарищи. And as always, remember, happiness is mandatory.
Thank you for listening to the Eastern Border Show. If you have any questions or comments, go to our website, theeasternborder.lv, and leave a comment there. Or email us at theeasternborder@gmail.com. We'll be sure to answer. You can also follow us on social media and contact us there. If you enjoyed this episode, then leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and tell your friends about us. It really helps us grow the show. And remember, happiness is mandatory.